A Current Affair, Book 2, Jameson Family Series, written by Tracee Lydia Garner, narrated by Skylar Morgan. 1. When Chyna Lockhart found herself at the front of the church, she felt tears sting the back of her eyes. One statement replayed itself over and over again in her cluttered head. Joseph Jameson Sr. is dead. Her entire future might as well have died with him. All the children of the late Mr. Jameson were seated at the front. A small crowd of fellow mourners surrounded them, paying their last respects and offering their condolences for the loss. Chyna wouldn't be doing any of that. She wouldn't speak to anybody at all. In fact, she didn't want them to see her or even know she was there. Chyna was clothed head to toe in black for the occasion, large mirrored sunglasses covering her eyes. She had spent almost an hour that morning combing her thick mane of natural shoulder-length hair around her face. She debated wearing a veil, but had eventually decided that this was unfeasible in Virginia's muggy, oppressive heat. Joseph Jameson Sr. had died during the final days of the notoriously hot summer in Springfield, Virginia. Now, wearing a small black hat, courtesy of her own deceased mother, Chyna sat and sweltered. Still, she had to manage only a few more minutes until the long, slow train of people moved on and she could escape, walking out with her head down, holding a crumpled handkerchief to her face at every opportunity. Despite having known the Jameson family all her life, she hoped fervently that the family would be too distracted in their grief to notice her. She knew she would have said something, offered words of sorrow to the family like the others, but right then she felt like nothing more than a casual acquaintance. Dean Jameson had made sure of that. Mrs. Jameson, of course, would insist she was family. As a girl, Chyna had practically lived in the home of her well-respected neighbors. She had often sought refuge there from her own family, that bunch of socially defunct misfits. She was more than a friend, almost a second sister to Gina and Tish. They had often referred to Chyna as such, and she always felt as if their inclusion and open expressions of love for her were genuine and true. Their home life was so different than her own. No one ever yelled or raised their voice, and they always seemed to have just enough love to embrace one more child, Chyna. When Mr. Jameson fell ill years earlier, she had become his nurse. She patiently waited on him hand and foot. Mrs. Jameson, too, and she had done so gladly. The Jamesons had given her so much happiness in her youth, it felt only fair to return the favor in their old age. With both her parents dead, the Jamesons were the only family she had left. It didn't matter that she wasn't really related to them. But Dean, he'd brought that feeling to a halt, hadn't he? Chyna shook her head absently. The longer she stood in line waiting to say goodbye, the more she felt a heavy and overwhelming numbness trying to swallow her. Unsuccessfully, she struggled to escape the strong arm of grief and sadness that threatened to envelop her. As she looked at Mr. Jameson's still frame, she chanced a quick look at Dean from the side of her concealing glasses. Dean's eyes were blank and expressionless as he stared off into space. His slumped posture and distant gaze tugged at Chyna's heart. She hated Dean for what he'd done to her, but despite it all, she still cared. When his eyes seemed about to lift and drift toward her, Chyna quickly turned away. Dean Jameson was the thing she had wanted most in her life, more than almost anything else. The one thing she wanted more, he'd caused her to lose. Out of the corner of her eye, Chyna saw Tish, her best friend's belly now swollen with twins. She was leaning against her big husband for support, his arm around her shoulders and his large right hand resting over her taut stomach, as if holding them all together through her grief. They deserved to be happy, Chyna thought.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?